Some of you may be asking yourself, what the hell is Kula World? Well, it's a platforming puzzle game released for the PlayStation 1 back in 1998, also known as Roll Away in the States and Kula Quest in Japan. No new releases really interest me at the moment, so I decided to do a few more retro reviews of games I enjoyed as a kid to give people some insight on them and overall to see how they've held up years later. I played the demo to death when I was younger, but because of its high popularity and short shelf life, it became hard to get a hold of a copy. Because of this, I just played a ROM for years, and eventually bought it off the PSN when I got my PS3, but as of recently, I now own a physical copy. It was developed by a small studio that went by the name Game Design Sweden AB. If it was released today, it'd get the indie game label slapped onto it. The gameplay was pretty simple at its core. You play as a beach ball. You're required to navigate pathways made up of blocks that defy gravity, avoiding any hazards that might puncture you, and collecting keys along the way so that you can open the exit portal. In each level, there are various items scattered around, like coins and gems to increase your score, hourglasses that reverse the time you have remaining, pills that temporarily slow down gameplay but make time pass faster, and various other items seen later in the game, like sunglasses that allow you to see invisible platforms for a while. On top of these, there's a single fruit found in each level. If you collect these, you get a big score bonus, and for every 5 you collect, you unlock a bonus round. And that's pretty much all there is to the gameplay. There are certain elements of levels introduced as you proceed, like floating enemies, icy platforms that you have to strategically slide across, crumbling blocks, hot platforms that melt you if you're on them for too long, the works. It manages to maintain variety throughout the whole game by changing the stage theme every 15 levels, constantly introducing new mechanics to solve each level, and the difficulty curve works great. The game gets consistently more difficult as you progress, but you're eased into every new mechanic fairly without the need for any tutorial prompts. It's infinitely satisfying to teach yourself how everything works in the game without anyone or anything having to explain it to you. On top of being there for bragging rights, score basically acts as lives, in a way at least. If you fall off the map, get punctured, or anything else that causes your ball harm, you get a chunk of your total score removed and then restart the level you were just on. Basically, if you're not worried about score, you'll be able to use the score as padding to keep you going. Once your score hits 0, game over. You go back to the last time you saved. Save points pop up at the end of every 5th level, so it's fair enough in that respect. Less so later on, because there are some devilishly hard levels later in the game. There's 150 levels in the main game, not counting bonus rounds or hidden stages, so it'll keep you busy for a while, especially with how hard some of the levels get later on. My last full playthrough took me about 2 weeks of on-off gameplay before I finally managed to beat it. Once you do manage to beat the game, there is an extra set of levels unlocked in the main menu called The Final, that puts absolutely everything you've learned about the game to the test in the biggest, most difficult levels in the whole game. These ones might as well have been designed by Hitler. Hard enough that I still haven't managed to get through all of them to this day. Granted, the gameplay still has its share of drawbacks. Movement is entirely grid-based, so it offers you a pretty good deal of precision, but jumping can be a bit unwieldy at times. You can jump on the spot by pressing X, but there's almost never any need to do that. What you do a lot more of is jumping forward, which requires pressing up and X at the exact same time. This may not sound like much of a problem to anyone who's played lots of platformers, but since it's grid-based, it can be a problem. If you press one button before the other, you either jump on the spot ineffectively or roll forward, usually into the hazard you were trying to avoid. This isn't something that happens too often, but I still get really nervous every time I have to traverse lots of hazards that require precise timing. Another enemy you'll have to tackle is depth perception. Some levels require you to jump down to lower platforms that can only be seen by holding R1 to tilt the camera down. Because of that view alone, it's hard to tell how far from the edge the platform is. For some, you just jump straight off the edge, but for others a little closer to the edge you're on, you'll have to jump from one grid back, or you'll overshoot it and fall off the map. After a while you can kinda pick up how far you have to jump, but these sequences are largely trial and error, which isn't normally something you want to risk when you're far in the level knowing that one misstep will kick you back to the start. Visually the game has aged quite well. The overall design is simplistic, but the little touches made all the difference. Even though the whole game just consists of blocks and skyboxes, each level set has a completely different look and feel to it. The atmosphere is further improved with a great soundtrack provided by the Swedish duo Twice a Man. The tracks are both upbeat and ambient, allowing them to provide a soothing backdrop to the levels that suits each stage really well. I also applaud the soundtrack for having one of the few examples of game music that really captures the feel of a snow level without the need for sleigh bells. On the side, the game does have a multiplayer mode, Time Trial and Copycat, whose names pretty much speak for themselves. Neither mode is particularly interesting and honestly just feels tacked on. This is a game designed to be played solo. Hell, the closest to a good multiplayer experience you could get with this game is playing with a friend over and taking turns beating the levels, or handing over the controller each time you fail a level. So that's basically Kula World. Does it stand the test of time? Well, in comparison to most other PlayStation titles I've played, I certainly think this one has aged the best. Hell, if it was released as a downloadable title today, I still reckon it would hold up pretty well. With better technology at least, because you know what people are like. It still resolutely stands as my favourite puzzle game of all time, and I highly recommend checking it out. It's pretty cheap on the PSN. If you don't own any PlayStation platforms, then don't fret. There's a free fan-made recreation for PC called Cubosphere that pretty faithfully recreates the gameplay of Kula World, complete with plenty of original levels and even a level creator if you want to try your hand at making your own. There's also an Android release which is basically an emulation of the PS1 version. I can't vouch for that one though because I haven't played it. I'm not sure how it would function with an obsolete form of control either. Kula World is simplicity at its finest. It's not flawless, but in what it sets out to do, it comes pretty damn close.